and welcome back to yet another episode of the Ascended Life Podcast. I am Darrell.
And I am Kesley, and once again, excited to be with you today, and we have a hot topic to talk about today.
We do have a hot topic, but before we dive into that, we want to give a special shout out today to ourselves. The Ascended Life Foundation is today's sponsor of the podcast, the episode that we're doing today. The Ascended Life Foundation is our foundation that we started, our nonprofit, and we do tons of work. We do things like providing educational tools to children, schooling, housing, you name it. We didn't really want to be the kind of nonprofit folks that just went into an area with a really mindset of, hey, we're Westerners, this is what y'all need. So we work directly with people in communities and find out what it is they need exactly. And we are able to provide that to them.
Yeah, and it's been so fulfilling. I mean, just getting to know the people, the culture. Tomorrow we're actually going out into a community and giving school supplies to children, and can't wait to share what that experience is like. But just this opportunity, if you've ever been here to Cartagena or traveled outside the country, you see that there's a need. We have so much, and we just feel blessed to be able to share this mission.
So we're going to have our website right there. So just hit us up. theascendedlifefoundation.com. You can get us on IG, on the website, any way you want. Get involved. If you want to donate, feel free to donate. If you don't want to donate, if you want to donate some time or you want to donate supplies, just anything that you have, we are interested or we need it. The need is so good. And we're not just limited to Colombia. The goal is we started this thing here in Colombia, but we're going to be moving in all through Central America, North America, where we're from. The goal is to shoot over to Africa probably next year at some point. Well, that's really contingent on our daughter's age and her being able to do longer flight times.
Yes, definitely.
That's the bigger thing
definitely. But it's a broader vision than just here. Where there's a need, where our hearts feel called, that's where we will go.
That's exactly where we will go. So that's that. AscendedLifeFoundation.com. Feel free to check us out. So moving right along into today's topic.
All right, kick us off.
Today's topic is going to be interracial dating. All right,
and relationships,
and interracial relationship, interracial dating in relationships, and our personal experience in that. All right, so let's start it off with the Colombian thing, like what it has been, because I feel that the interracial relationship has been I don't even like saying that term. We never say that outside of this, but it is what it is,
Yes. But it's something I think people are interested in, right? Like people have asked us questions about it and our experiences. And so like I said, that's not something we talk about over the dinner table on a day-to-day basis, but it's definitely something that
let's talk about it. So let's talk. So what's your take on interracial relationships, or what we would consider? And you know what? This was my idea for this podcast. I'll start this off. All right.
Okay, great.
So first off, to even be able to perceive this, right? To come to a place where I feel like where you can even understand, let me move this chair over just a little bit, but to even come to a place where you're able to understand interracial relationships. The thing is, as a Westerner, right? In the United States, we have our firm idea of what race is. We have ideas of what people look like, what's black, what's white, what's Hispanic, what's not, right? So, number one, before I preface our interracial relationship experience in Colombia, you have to understand that they see themselves drastically different. That the same racial lines don't apply in Colombia. For example, I've met people that here, in the United States, there's no way they would be considered black at all. But they truly identify and consider themselves as black or Morano or negro, as they say here, right? So we just keep that in the back of your minds, right? Now, with that all being said, to me, the number one thing that I noticed being here, as opposed to the US or Canada, is you don't see nearly as many what we would consider interracial relationships. To me, you don't see, and by that I mean somebody that's light, like around your complexion, with somebody who's around my complexion. I mean, I feel like locally, I don't know if I've seen any. Maybe in Medellin, but here, I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know about seeing, but even meeting people, the only examples I can think of that would be considered what we would call interracial have been like a man from here married a woman from like Italy, for example. Yeah. So I haven't run into any locally. Yeah,
I haven't run into any locally much. I don't want to say, but again, their definition, like some of the locals will tell us that it exists, right? And that it's here, but it's like a lighter skinned guy that would be like in the United States, you would think a guy is like, I don't even know, like, I don't want to throw out ethnicities, but you wouldn't consider him black. And then a chick who you technically wouldn't consider white. That's another thing. What we have in the United States, right? there are people that would fit the definition of what we would consider Black or African people, for sure, here and in the US. But what most people would consider white, like they consider Shakira, for this should give you guys a scale. Shakira is considered like a bleach blonde here. Like she's like blonde hair, blue eyed to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've been called Shakira walking through the streets here in Cartagena many times.
Exactly. So to them, that is a thing that, you know, it is what it is. At least that's been our experience with that, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Indeed.
So, but I will say, but that's Cartagena. But Cartagena, you have to understand the entire coast of Colombia, right? Like the coast on the Atlantic side, and they say on the Pacific as well, the entire coastal region is people of African descent. So it's heavier, like darker skinned peoples in these whole areas. You know what I mean? Then now Medellin is a whole different experience. So first off, you didn't see many people that looked like me there, and you didn't see anybody that looked like Kesley there. So we're there walking together, and in Medellin, people are nice here across the board.
Yes.
Like I'm not saying that I haven't felt any discrimination at all in this country, period, right? And there's conversations to be had about whether that's a money thing or whatever, but whatever it is, I haven't experienced that. Have you felt any of that?
No, not at all.
Okay, so with that being said, the key thing that I've noticed in Medellin is like the stares were like crazy. Like if I was walking through the streets by myself, they're staring like I'm an alien or something, you know? And I know you said you had similar experiences.
I mean, yes, definitely, right? Because you don't see a lot of blonde hair, blue-eyed women. So yes, definitely when you walk through the street, there is a little bit of, but I would just say it's more curiosity.
Yeah.
Right. And I've noticed that even in other countries that I've traveled to as well, like when you don't look like the local people necessarily, like I've actually been in places like India or Asian countries where they will stop you and want to take a picture. So it's not to that level here, but certainly there's a level of intrigue. And then when
they were taking pictures with me, remember?
Yeah.
At the bar, over the locks, yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yes. But then when you add in the level of an interracial couple, right? Yeah. That also adds another level of I would call it intrigue. I wouldn't say it's any sort of, racism or mistreatment or anything like that. It's curiosity.
I can agree.
The biggest thing
I can agree with that 100%. Definitely a curiosity feel. Like Medellin here, it's like definitely more Medellin than here, but it's definitely more like, hey, you know, it's a couple and they're different and they look good and they look good together. You know, it's definitely more of a curiosity. It's not like when I can't notice it now, but I do remember when I was younger, and I guess my confidence wasn't where it is now. I would definitely feel a judgment look in the United States when I would walk around with a white woman if I dated with some of my white girlfriends back in the day, you know. But we'll dive deep into the U.S. part later on.
Yeah, what has been interesting also about the intrigue is a lot of questions about Akasha, our daughter.
Oh yeah, they think she's Colombian.
Yeah, man. Colombiana. People, think because she is, a mixed little girl. So and with a tan, right? So she's got like that, like beautiful, like bronze kind of skin tone now, and then she's got the curly hair. So they're very curious, especially with that when I'm with her alone. Like, okay, is her father Colombian? Like, where is her father? Who is he? And they try to ask it in a very nice way without prying or getting into like very specific racial questions, but they are very curious about her specifically. And
I think that's a deeper thing. It's like the fact that, like, because Dominic, my son, when he was here, he got the same thing, and it's like, I think that kind of goes into detail about how like the people mix here. There's a rich history of mixing down here of people from all type of different backgrounds. I mean, we spoke on Palenque, but from all these different backgrounds. And it's like the norm, it's not like these white people that you see on television. It's people like my son and our children's skin tone and darker is, I would say, the norm for Colombia. You know what I mean? Yeah. In all honesty.
Yeah, definitely. And it is a mixture of different people, right, coming together. You've got Spanish influence, you've got the Aboriginal influence. We spoke about that last time. We don't need to get into it again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say, again, above and beyond, the biggest thing has been the curiosity. And I think also, right, like you said, the intrigue. I think also when you see, people who, there's sort of a way I think we represent ourselves, you can sort of feel like the spiritual part of us as well. Like, for example, like we'll go out every day and meditate in the garden. So, I mean, you put, again, the different cultures together, and then the fact that these people are sitting out every day in the garden meditating, like what's up with them? Who are they? And why are they doing all these things? I think that it's just been really interesting. And the questions we get, just like, well, are you meditating? What is that? It's fun, actually. I enjoy it.
I haven't gotten any of those questions.
Yeah.
But I will say this though. So the one issue, I haven't experienced any of this, but I've had stories from locals, darker skinned locals. So for example, I think I told you guys about San Andreas last time, but I'll dive into that again. So San Andreas is an island that is a part of Colombia now. It's been a part of Colombia for about 200 years, but before that, it was historically a part of Jamaica. And apparently Jamaica was like, hey, we don't want this island anymore. And they gave it over to Colombia. So you got this mix of Colombian people and Jamaican people, right? Mm-hmm. A friend who lives there, and this is his perspective, I have not been, but I asked him, I was like, hey, you guys are basically Jamaican and you talk Jamaican, you eat Jamaican, everything about you seems Jamaican. They're darker skinned, brown skinned, darker skinned people. And I was like, where are the locks? Why don't y'all have locks? And he told me that, hey, it's frowned on or it's looked at this way or from, like it's looked down upon or people give you these looks and stuff like that, right? Now, but this is another deeper thing to kind of go into and to tie into racism. In my experience is like, and this is a deeper spiritual axiom, a lot of these things that we believe kind of bring these realities about because that's his experience and he believes that. And I'm not taking anything away from his experience and whether that happened to him or not in his island growing up or here growing up. I even heard that growing up in the United States, like the generation above us. You can ask anybody from my generation that grew up from the same ethnic background as myself. And a lot of our parents, not all, they had us keeping our hair short as guys or cutting their, or women straightening their hair to look more Eurocentric basic or Euro-friendly, if you will. And a lot of that was, from our parents' position, they thought that's what's going to get us the jobs and that's what's going to happen, right? Something happened with our generation where everybody was like, forget all that. Yeah. We don't care about that. I mean, I've seen more locks in the U.S. probably now than even Jamaica. You know what I mean? A lot of women getting rid of the weaves, wearing their hair more natural, right? So I'm wondering if when he said that, if it's kind of like that vibe, but he bought into it. That's the difference. Yeah, he's the same age as us, but whereas a lot of U.S. people, I can't count the U.S. people, men and women I know, that heard the same stories that I heard about the hair and hair shaming and stuff like that, but that now have locks or whatever natural style that they want to wear. You know what I mean? So it brings the bigger thing into how big mindset is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say that's something that not so much on the hair front, but I think like self-expression.
Yeah.
Even like whatever culture you're in, especially in the US, has become more accepted. Like I've noticed, for example, in the corporate world, more people with like piercings, tattoos, things like that. So it's, I don't know.
The president of your board, this lady's tatted up.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, I love that is empowering melanated people, right? To be proud of their culture, hair, whatever it is, but also that it extends beyond cultures, right? And I'm sure, whether it's your religious background, your whatever it is, like feeling proud to just be who you are, and whether it's in your workplace or whatever, because I struggled with that a lot too, right? Like even spiritually, feeling like I had to, hide my crystals or like, don't let anybody know that you do astrology. I had a corporate client just the other day, I don't even think I shared this with you, who actually, we were having a like very classic like corporate career coaching session, and he had looked up my blog and he's like, so I hear you do astrology. Let's talk about astrology. And so we had a whole session on him, his astrology, his, brought some of his relationships into the mix. And so people are just more empowered to be who they are, no matter what that means.
I'm just going to speak the truth on this from my experience. When we first started dating, when we first got together, you were big on, hey, your family saw you this way, right? And I was like, babe, I don't see it. I don't see that they see you that way, right? And your job saw you that way. And I was like, babe, I don't see that they see you that way, right? And when you leaned into that and you changed your mindset, you've been in a place of full expression around your family. Well, I guess it's our family now. Shout out to the Tweeds as usual. But you've been in a place of complete expression with our family on your side, if that makes sense. But then your job has been the biggest transformation I've seen. But I need to tie that into racism.
Yes, I was going to bring that back.
Well, I grew up as it's literally a thing where I can tell you flat out, period, point blank. I have friends who are same skin color, if not lighter than me, but they walk around with this racist thing. And at the end of the day, if we're going to be people, we can't have things both ways. We either have to be people that understand that we have, like, God is within us, the kingdom of heaven is within us, right? So literally we can create, we're co-creators in this reality, in this world, right? So it's like, if we believe these things, and I know people that believe this stuff, and I see it happen to them all the time. And it's just like, it's just not part of my reality. You know what I mean? It just hasn't, it just hasn't been. you know?
Yeah.
So, and it's about that consciousness. So I think that goes hand in hand, where I saw you firsthand when you believed these things about your work and your family. It wasn't really happening, but for you it was, and you created it. And in a way you would attract that, right?
Yes.
It's like, I can take away the racial part, right? I know people flat out that go around like, oh, I wish somebody would, or I wish that. And you better believe these are the people that are always getting robbed. They're getting held up. They're in these crazy situations.
Yes.
Then the people like you or me, that's like, this stuff, if we don't even consider this stuff happening, it doesn't happen.
Right.
So especially at this time, we have to be much more conscious and aware of our thoughts, feelings, and actions.
Yes, absolutely. Like you said, in all situations, whether it's in dating, in, you know, meeting someone's family when you're dating for the first time, whatever it is, you're right. Our consciousness is creating our reality. To kind of expand on the racial piece for a moment, right? Like I had an experience, I'll just share a little bit about like being a less melanated person among many melanated people. Yeah. Right. Remember when I signed up to go to Zambia last year? Yeah. Right. This was a really beautiful example.
Shout out Gia, Dave, if y'all watching as well.
So we felt called for one of us to take this trip to Africa, and he was amazing and volunteered to stay back with our baby and said, "You love to travel, babe, you go." And so I went. I was.
We hadn't traveled in so long. I felt like that was your thing.
It was. Yeah, travel is like my soul. Like that is one of the ways my soul really expresses and feels most alive and most free, is when I'm able to go out into the world and like experience. So you gave me that gift. So I was the least melanated person on the trip, going from the U.S. to the country of Africa, where we were well aware I was going to be probably the only, the least melanated person, let's say, among everybody on the trip. And at first I was honestly a little bit nervous, right? Especially traveling outside the country. You know, how's this going to be? Like, what's this experience going to be like? Am I going to fit in? You know, all of those natural questions. And I just made the decision, like, I just want to be like in my soul. I want to experience this. I want to go over to Africa. I want to put my feet on the ground. I want to be friendly. I want to like look people in the eye and like genuinely soul to soul connect. And with that energy, I will tell you, I had the most amazing experience, right? Like whether it was the group that we connected with from here in the US, again, shout out to Dave and Gia and the whole group, or those who just embraced us over in Zambia and Africa. We met a village of children and got a chance to like really like connect with them and speak in front of them. And I basically shared with them, I said, you know, you can't understand what I'm saying because we had a translator, but I want you to see through my smile and through my eyes that I'm sending love to you, right? And so it's like, when we go out about it with that energy of like, yes, we may look different, our skin may be, culturally we may be completely different, but there's something on a soul level, there's a source inside of all of us. And that was just the intention and the energy that I wanted to carry, and everything, like you said, manifested from that intention on that trip. Yeah.
I wasn't there, so I can't speak to it.
Yeah.
But I've heard from you, Gia, Dave, Fritz, Brandon, everybody's telling me I got to go to Zambia. Hopefully, I don't know. I think they're going in October. We'll figure that out. All right.
Yeah.
Moving forward. Now, that sums up the whole Colombian experience, unless you have anything to add.
No, nothing else out in Colombia.
So let's talk about the United States.
Let's talk about it.
So you're right. Let's talk about it. In the United States, it's a whole different thing in interracial dating, in my opinion. So I'll tell you my perspective or my experiences on that. All right. It's not much. So by and large, it's been huge positivity. Like, in you being accepted into my community has been huge. Like the way that the women have welcomed you, like every spiritual event we've gone to, or the mine, or my friends, or most people, by and large, it has been amazing. I mean, my family it's automatic. I mean, they're my family. They don't think about those kind of things like that. You know what I mean? So that's automatic. But the community in large in Atlanta has been a huge thing. You know, it's been very positive. It's been very loving. The only noticeable thing that I've experienced in the U.S. was, well, this is before you, okay? So the state of Ohio, and I learned out, have you heard of astrological cartography?
Yes.
Okay, so I found out that apparently there's places that are not. Last night, that lady I was telling you about was talking about there's places that your birth, like you should not go, that are detrimental to your body, right? And Ohio, for anybody that looks like me, has got to be it, right? So in Ohio, I experienced some of the craziest stuff, period. But a lot of it was based around anger and hatred and racism. Ohio's got a lot of negativity going on up there, right? But I had scenarios by which I would be just walking with my white girlfriend at the time, and the police literally pulled up on us and started screaming at me, and she was about to fight these guys. You know what I mean? So that was an experience that I had. Now, but that was it. Outside of Ohio, I've never had any issues with, I mean, I've literally dated as many women from my own background as I have dated less melanated people, I guess is what you're calling folks now. So less melanated folks. But with that being said, the only experience I've had in Atlanta, and, you know, I think it's due to the fact that I was on a reality TV show that was based on dating for more melanated people. It was a very small group or sect of people, mainly women, because dudes just don't seem to care, but that were kind of outspoken and would say some things and DMs, but, you know, I don't really give that energy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And again, once you ignore a thing and it's not in your consciousness, it just goes away.
Yeah.
But that's been the only thing, I mean, that I can say in my experience. You know what I mean? There was some stuff that, with my son being interracial, there was some overt, blatant racism in the earlier days. So like when I was in my 20s, I guess it was a different time. I don't know, but like there were some things that I saw that were, and me and my son have talked about this from his mother's side of the family, not his mother at all, but from certain members, not the whole family, but certain members that were just, you know, I'd known his mother since I was about 12, and if she gets pregnant when we're 20, and all of a sudden a few people were racist, or, you know, so which means they always had to have been that way. So that was it that I saw in my life when it comes to interracial. It hasn't been much, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I did have one other story I guess I could share, but am I just going on monologues here? You know
no,
what I mean?
It's okay. I mean, this is an important topic for, I think your perspective is very important on this one especially.
So the other story I had was there was this girl. Now this wasn't a girlfriend. It was just a girl that I went on a couple dates with. It was a lady cop. I won't say her name. When I was living in Detroit, she was a short, kind of thicker, but thick in a, I guess, more attractive way. Lady. I did not know she was a cop. I would not have dated her. But anyway, so I found out she was a lady cop. We were in a bar in a suburb of Detroit called Royal Oak. And we were, you know, I won't go into the politics of Detroit. I haven't been there in like 10 years. I don't live there anymore. I don't want to speak on Detroit. I don't know what it's like. But we were in Royal Oak and we were making out on the dance floor. As you know, in the 2000s, that's what people did. You met and people made out on the dance floors, right? So we were making out, and then these bouncers came up, and these white bouncers, men came up, I'm sorry, less melanated bouncers came up, and they were literally trying to throw us out. Well, this lady was a cop, and she wasn't having any of this. I mean, she's ready to shoot these dudes. You know what I mean? So it's been small things like that way back when. But like I said, by and large, it has been, in my experience, the vast minority.
Yeah.
But if you want to compare the United States to here, way more things I've experienced in the United States than here now. But the argument or the conversation could be had that we're living in this different time now, and that the consciousness is so elevated that back, you know, that was, God, I was in so almost 20 years ago, it was a whole different time, whole different consciousness. And now that this awakening has happened, it could be that. So that's been my experience. Yeah. Or my experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with a lot of what you shared in terms of, you know, people being very open. You know, like I said, went to some even spiritual events where in Atlanta, a lot of the spiritual community is more melanated than I am, and just totally embraced me. We're very curious. I would say that one thing that you've helped to really open my eyes on is that I feel like there is a sort of past version of me, we'll call it, right, who had this maybe like pattern of like stepping into this like very corporate side of me, right? Like very corporate, very like, you know, very careful about what I say, and just very like polished, right? And you're like, babe, like just show up, just be you, just like be in your soul, especially if you're going to be around more of my people. Yep. And so I've consciously, you know, over the last couple of years, like made that shift, like not wanting to put on that persona of, okay, come off so polished. It's like, no, I'm going to show up. I'm going to be me. I'm going to, you know, be in my heart and in my soul. And from that space, I found I've been able to make really, really great connections. But it, you know, sometimes less melanated people can interact differently than more melanated people. I have definitely noticed that as well. So it has been, I would say, an amazing growth and learning, even through you, like the people that I've met, whether it's financially, you know, spiritual teachers, you know, just people that think outside the box. Like you've introduced me to so many amazing connections that I would say like the interracial relationship has opened up my mind, has expanded my consciousness in a way that I guess I couldn't have predicted. Like I wasn't like out there looking for an interracial relationship. Like I've always dated very openly.
Yeah.
You know, like it's never been, like race has never really been a thing for me that I've really thought about. So I feel that I've been blessed to have the exposure that I have to maybe a different way of thinking, a different way of interacting, embracing community, all the things that you've been able to introduce me to.
You're very welcome.
I'm curious. So you actually made the trip up to North Dakota last summer.
Yeah.
Which North Dakota is a very, it's not a lot of diversity in North Dakota. Obviously there's a little bit in some of the larger cities, but not so much in like the smaller hometown that I'm from, a town of about 100 people. You made the trip and came up for our 140th celebration of our town. What was that experience like being in probably one of the least diverse places you've been in at least recent years after living in Atlanta?
I mean, I there's not much to say. I mean, there was nothing. Everybody I met was extremely welcoming, very kind. I mean, shout out North Dakota. It's different. Those are some of the nicest people I've ever met. I didn't feel any negativity. Everybody was extremely welcoming, and there's literally nothing to say about North Dakota other than, let me not say that, because just because when people say there's nothing to say, they mean there's nothing negative to say.
Yeah.
So there's plenty positive to say.
Yeah.
All right. So your family is amazing. Let me stop saying that. Our family is amazing. You know, love them all. Great people. All the people that we met up there were just so kind, so loving. They just seemed genuinely interested in what we had going on or where we were from. I didn't feel anything, you know, and negative. I didn't feel any negativity. Felt nothing but positivity. I mean, there's a lot of bugs up there.
Yeah, there were a lot of bugs, and it was kind of cold. A little bit cold last year, but it's not normally like that in July. We just got a weird week.
But what I wanted to piggyback on was before that, you had mentioned like you weren't the kind of person that just dated one type of people exclusively.
Yeah, right.
And I want to talk on that, on some of the experiences I've had. I've had some experiences, not often, but a couple of guys, more melanated guys that I think they may have. Look, I've always been, anybody that knows me knows that I've literally dated as many. My type is literally either a woman from my own background or if I have a physical type, or I guess what you're calling a less melanated woman. I've literally dated equal amounts, probably more realistically, women that look like me. It's probably like a 55-45 thing, all right? Now, with that being said, though, I've met people, some guys that have said some off-the-wall stuff if they see you with a less melanated people. I've met guys that have flat out come up to me and said off-the-wall stuff, negative stuff about our own women. And I'm kind of like, bro, don't get it twisted. Don't think because my wife is this or whatever that I have no issue. I don't hate my mother or my own people, but I think there's different reasons why people date that way. And I find that, but it's typically those people that you find that are, and I'm not knocking anybody that has a type. Have your type, it is what it is. But I've found, and I've interacted and met some guys specifically that have been hurt or have some opinion, I don't know. And we didn't have long relationships because they said these comments to me about our own women. And it was like, it was an immediate turn off. So I think that's that. And I think another thing is like people, all right, so when people see me out and about, I've heard it tons of times, like, you know, with my beard and with my locks, like a lot of people just assume that, I mean, today's world has changed, so you can't really assume, but a lot of people just assume that my girlfriend or my wife looks like me. And, you know, and I guess there's stereotypes about people that date less melanated people and vice versa. And people see you and you just look like a regular person. And I think that, you know, what people are starting to understand is there are people that literally just date more fluidly.
Yes.
And it's not like hey, I'm exclusively into less white girls, or I'm exclusively into these. I mean, you've told me about, you've dated Brazilian men. Yeah. You've dated less melanated men. You've dated, I mean, you know, you dated the rainbow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for me, it's always been, and I think like, I'm not going to speak to everyone's spiritual journey because I don't know everyone's spiritual journey. But for me, it's like the more my consciousness opened up and the more I just started to look at people for their energies versus like a specific type or having a checklist, it became very difficult to peg that into a specific, you know, race. It's like energy is energy. You connect with someone on a spiritual level, and I'm of the belief, right? Like I do believe in in reincarnation. And I don't believe that in every single lifetime we choose to be the same race. Like, I may have been someone of your skin color in my last life. I may have been Asian in another life. I may have been a man in another life. Like, I'm not attached to like the physical body, because who we are in this lifetime is basically like we're bringing some of all of those experiences into this.
Yeah.
So I just think you're limiting yourself if you think about choosing a partner based on race alone. However, I do understand that people have different reasons for doing what they do.
I like what you said about that, because people talk about, and I've read this in several ancient tomes, and some of these folks, I really study these NDEers, the folks that have died and come back, and they literally say that every experience that you have is here, as long as you frame it positively and grow to turn you back into the universe or into God. It's not about just being here working and dying and then having to reincarnate. It's about literally becoming what we're meant to be. So I love that you touched on that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I remember us having some conversations on that very early on as well. Like, you know, you sometimes wonder, like, well, why would our souls choose to be with someone who looks different or is from a different race? Well, potentially on a spiritual journey, you can really learn a lot intimately from being with someone who sees the world very differently, who sees through different eyes and has different experiences. Like, there's no way I could ever relate to a Black or melanated man if I didn't have this close of an intimate relationship with someone in the way that we do.
And vice versa.
It gives you a broader perspective.
And vice versa. And I know literally the same here, but I know you touched on people that limit themselves to dating exclusively, right? Now, with the trauma and the history, listen, there's tons of way to deal with trauma, right? So like say if you were to take everybody who descended from the same background as I did, right? And you were to put them into a person, a physical body, right? I like to look at things like the abuse wife, right? So if you're a wife or anybody who suffered any kind of abuse, it just depends on what it is that you want to do and what your goals are, right? Yeah. So I don't think you have to be crazy to say that the injustices that happened didn't happen or we need to forget it or whatever. Like, I think that's nuts. That's ludicrous, right? But it's how does that woman handle, or that abuse victim handle the abuse, right? You have the people that handle it from anger, right? And, you know, who am I to tell somebody who's gone through this abuse that anger isn't the way? But it just depends on what your end goal is. Right. You know what I mean? You have people that handle it from a victim mindset. You know what I mean? And which at the end of the day, a lot of abuse victims, they would be justified to see themselves as victims. But my question would be, where does that get you ultimately, right? And then you have the people that take accountability and say, you know what, this is my reality. I'm the God of my reality. God lives within me. And I'm going to use the power and co-create what he gave me to take accountability. Not saying that I'm taking accountability for my ancestors being dragged over and that kind of stuff. No, but from where I am right here, right now, does it do me better to focus on things that are going on with Trump, or with the true freedom is the only freedom that I see here physically. Now, I'm not talking about spiritual and all that. And this is why we do the things that we do, is wealth. I'm just going to be honest. When you have money, you can do whatever you want. Right? There's nobody that can tell. Nobody calls me and says, hey, you got to go to work. You got to go to job. You got to do this. Right? We're able to travel and do a lot of these things, and wealth will set that free. So instead of my advice would be to anybody who's caught up in these things, find a way to get rich. I mean, I probably sound like Andrew Tate right now, but you go and do whatever you got to do to get rich. And then get nothing. It doesn't matter what color you're at. Nobody, they call it FU money, right? Because you can literally say to anybody, F, so it doesn't matter at that point. Right. So I think it all depends on what your goal is with these things. Well, and rich, right? Let's talk about those words for a second. Rich and wealthy. Like you talked about the monetary piece, right? But it's also a way, an energy. It's a way that you carry yourself. It's a way of thinking that makes you wealthy, that makes you rich, that you're right. That the world responds to that. It's not because people don't know if you have money or not when you walk into a room. They don't know if you have money. They kind of do. But they make a guess based on how you're dressed and how you carry yourself. Oh, right. So it's more about the energy. It's more about how you carry yourself. So I'm not saying don't go out there and create abundance, because we're all more than capable of that, 100%. Okay. But that abundance and that the world responding to you in the way that you may want it to starts from feeling rich and feeling wealthy within. And your own self-worth. With that. I agree with that. And that's why I preface that with speaking physically and the physical reality only. But you're right, there's bigger pieces to it. I can't tell you how many people, I know quite a few of my wealthy friends that, I won't say any names, but they get to a place and they're like, well, what now? Because they haven't done the spiritual work and so forth and so on. And a lot of people that I know, it's that the higher they climb up the financial rung, a lot of the other social classes just don't matter. So that's what I'm just saying. If you feel downtrodden or that the white man is keeping you, just go get rich. Literally. I mean, financially. I mean, it sounds great, but that's for somebody, that wasn't my path. That's not what I did. That's not how I got through the I guess what people would call the perceived or the racism of our world. For me, it was more of a mindset first thing, and then that led to the other abundances. But I'm simply saying, all right, I'm going to say it right here on our podcast. There's not many things I agree with Andrew Tate on, but he does make good points in some cases. Like literally, if you have 10 million, 20, 25 million, you can go and you can be and you could sit on a beach or be at the ocean or go get on it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Who's thinking about somebody who's sitting in Ohio or sitting in the middle of, I don't know, anywhere, calling you to end? What does that matter? This he hates his life, right? And that's another thing I want to talk about racism. I would love for somebody to show me, I'll pay this. Right now on the podcast, if you're watching this, if you can show me a person that is completely fulfilled in their life and is very happy and lives in that happiness and abundance who's a racist, right now, $100. If you can find that person, I'll give you $100. If there's something that goes hand in hand with a lot of negative traits where judgment, I mean, the Kabbalists talk about don't judge or you will become that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm not saying if you judge people based on their skin color, but maybe those attributes, these negative stereotypes you'll bring onto yourself. Like if you see darker skinned people as impoverished, right? That may bring you into some form of poverty. It may not be monetary, but it could be poverty of spirit or poverty of knowledge or wisdom. You know what I mean? So it's those kind of things.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Wow, we're covering a lot of topics today. I didn't expect that this would bridge off into wealth and finances and all these sorts of things.
Well, let's bridge it into the next one. So next weekend or next week, we're going to be talking about the question that you posed last week, which was on
spirituality.
My journey
and what
on
you've been
spirituality.
Focusing on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we were talking about just, how on the spiritual journey we moved through lots of different chapters, we'll say, right?
So
lessons. And so
I will leave. This will be the last thing I'll say, and then you can close us out. I'll leave it on this. I'm ready to answer that. My spiritual journey has been on connecting back with Source or God, connecting back with God or Source of the universe, whatever you want to call it. I like the word God personally, but my journey has been in connecting back with God. But what I found through your teacher is the key thing is trusting God, right? So my issue was at a very early age, our parents do the best that they can, right? But at some point you're going to be let down. And you make your parents your God at that point as a kid. They're the one that's providing for you and doing these things. And then when you're let down and you have that disappointment, you equate that, if I can't trust mom to show up or dad to show up or auntie, uncle, preacher, teacher, officer to show up, then how, why would I trust somebody I can't see?
Right.
But the issue has been in not having that trust in God, right? And then truly putting my trust back in, like if you ask for it, you will receive it. But knowing that.
Wow.
Right? That has been the biggest thing on my spiritual journey. And I would like to dive deep into that next week.
That will be exciting.
Yeah. What about you?
Very similar, right? Because I think, when your lives are intertwined, your spiritual journey is sometimes intertwined as well. But through working with my spiritual teacher, Yandia, she's helped me to see
Shout out Yandia if you're watching. Shout out Yandia.
Dualistic consciousness that I was
about duality.
Yes, I was. I was talking about how my spiritual journey right now has really been focused on this belief that I held subconsciously about how God was somehow out there, and really connecting with God within and discovering how to authentically express that, right? Like, how does that look expressed through Kesley? How does God, how do I embodying God? How does that look expressed? Like, how do I become unconditional love? How do I become one with the God within? So it is a deep and profound and impactful journey. So grateful for Yandia and her guidance along the way.
Yeah, and I saw that you said unconditional love, and that's one thing that the NDE folks, the folks that have crossed over and come back, they all say that when you get there, it's all unconditional love. So, but we'll have a lot more to say about that next week.
Indeed.
We will be in Medellin, and we are going to do an ayahuasca ceremony. We are going up into the mountains, and we've known a lot of folks that have done it in the U.S., and they don't seem to have the same. Everybody who's been anywhere in South America, Costa Rica, with shaman from down here, something with the land and the medicine. They have profound experiences. So maybe you guys will have new hosts next time. I don't know.
Exactly.
We may not be the same people anymore.
Yeah,
so.
I'm excited because, like I said, you know, I spent about 3 months in Costa Rica several years ago when I was new on my spiritual journey. And at that time, there was so much going on, like dark night of the soul, like so much coming up. I was like, I can't handle the medicine right now. Like, I'm going to wait. And so now it's the time. So I'm excited to see what unfolds from this amazing journey we're about to take.
Tune in next week for our talk on spirituality, on our definitions of God, the universe, and how we work with that energy and our ayahuasca experience. We'll see how we change. We might have to break it up into 2 podcasts depending on how this ayahuasca thing
we'll see
goes.
how it flows and who emerges from the ceremony.
I don't know who's going to be here. Do you know? I don't know who's going to be here.
I don't know. We'll see,
here?
right?
Who knows, right?
We will. The real us, right? Like the we. There may be parts of the ego that were lost along the way, but we will be here.
We will see what's going to happen.
The God parts of ourselves will be here.
We will be there. So peace and love to any and everybody watching. Like, follow, subscribe, and please, please, please share. If you like this video, it does so much for us if you guys share on your pages, send it to a friend, somebody who likes to hear this. That's how we grow, and through us growing, we're able to bring you guys more content like this. All right?
And we would love for you to also check out the Ascended Life Foundation, our nonprofit, for you to get involved. We'll put the link in the description as well. And we'll cap it off there. Peace and love, everyone.
Peace and love. It's the AscendedLifeFoundation.org. I said it's org, but I got it. So
it'll be in the show description.
Peace and love, y'all.